Hello, this is Glenn's Musings. So I wrote a book, and my mom very generously published it. So it's a guide to building your path to heaven. In the Baha'i faith, there are several unknowable essences while we're alive. One of them is God. We cannot understand his nature. He is beyond us. Another is heaven. So for, this isn't exactly what heaven is like. This is more of a guide for what we should be doing according to the many writings I've read over the years on how to become a better person. So it starts off in the plain of purgatory. It's a desolate, almost completely empty plain with a layer of fog upon the ground, and there is a man standing upon a small little hill waiting for people to die so he can help guide them to where they need to go based on the choices they made in their life. And then suddenly a child rises up from the fog, and he spots the man up on the peak, and so he goes over to him. Timmy, welcome to heaven. If I'm in heaven now, how did I get to heaven? I want to know. And then the man on top of the point said, well, you've done many good things. But last summer, do you remember when you were at the family reunion and everyone was there and one of your cousins dropped his cookie? What is it that you did? Oh, I, I saw there were no more cookies left. So I went and got my cookie. I broke it in half and gave half to him. Yes, that's it. That was the greatest deed you did because it was so selfless. You gave up something you had to give to another. Because as Jesus said, whatever you do unto the least of my kind, you do unto me. It is our actions and deeds we give to each other that are it's not, as Baha'u'llah said, let deeds be thy adorning, not words. Words are for everyone, but deeds show your true character. A person might say that they are a great noble person, but then every day cheats every person that comes into his store, treats everyone terribly, and he's incredibly racist and awful human being. But he says he goes to church on Sunday, and so therefore he is a good man. Are you going to believe which? That he's a good man? Are you going to believe the deeds or his words? I would believe his deeds, that he's not choosing to take care of his fellow men. So now we return to Timmy in the foggy plain. Suddenly before his eyes, this portal begins to open up. And the portal, he sees a woman standing there. And then the man says, this is your great grandmother. She's passed on before you. I'm sorry that you got cancer and died so young, but she will guide you the rest of the way into heaven. This is purgatory you are in, and now just go ahead and go to your great-grandmother. She will teach you about heaven and what it is you are to do there. And she ran up and hugged him, and then they walked hand in hand through the portal to heaven, and then slowly that portal closed. behind them. And the man upon the mound was all alone again in the vast but mostly empty plain of purgatory. And so he was alone once more. So now we go on to the next story I wrote about another person who, of course, passed away, and that was Jenny. She passed away, and she saw the man had a halo and said, "Are you an angel?" And he said, "Yes, I am an angel. That is one of many names you can call me." And then Jen said, "So I guess I'm in heaven then?" And he said, "Why, yes. I've noticed my knee pain that I had for years is just gone. All of my sufferings are gone. I'm not hungry. I feel so at ease. Welcome to purgatory. But you'll only be here for a short while, Jenny. Do you remember back in high school, a school dance?" "Yeah, I remember that dance. What about it?" I just was there. I was I did many dances in high school for that matter. I don't know if I can remember the details of every dance. It was the third dance, my child. And in that dance, do you remember the dance when all the boys were lined up and everyone got to dance, but you saw one boy, he didn't get to dance because no one was dancing with him. So you went over and you danced with him. It was just a simple act of charity that you chose to dance with him because no one would. And you want to know what that became of that young man? That young man grew up, that he decided that your act of charity, he would be an act of charity. So his whole life became that of giving. He worked for charities his whole life. If you hadn't danced with him on that day, he may not have made that choice. That's the power of the charity you gave. So of course you're going to heaven. And your guide will be your husband, for he died a few years before you. And so suddenly the window opened up again of a beautiful field, and there was her husband. She ran up to him and kissed him as hard as she could. And he said, "My beloved wife, thank you for for doing for joining me in heaven. We will have a wonderful life now together in this plane." And so then that window again closed, and the angel was all alone again upon the plain of purgatory. So now we turn to a tale of someone who's lived a very selfish life. Not all of us are charitable. Some of us choose to be selfish. So we come to the story of Scrooge. He ran a company and he chose to not pay his employees very much. He chose to limit what sort of services they had available. And so then, as time flows, he eventually died. And he said, "So where am I? Is this hell?" Because I didn't believe in any of that stuff, but clearly there is an afterlife. And then the angel says to him, "No, you are not in hell. You are not cast out. You are in the plane of purgatory. But how could I be in that plane? I can't recall a single charitable thing I ever did. There is one, and for that you have achieved purgatory. As you may notice, all of your aches, pains, and illnesses are gone. For this is a level of heaven, it's just not the best. Because you loved your wife. You did so many things for her. Yes, you wanted her love in return, so it wasn't entirely selfless, but at least it was a deed you did nice. You did charity to one person, at least. Even it served your own purpose. Well, unfortunately, do you remember your partner, Marley? He, too, you both were very selfish men, but he died before you, and he will be your guide to this plane of purgatory. And the things, don't worry, you can still progress in the kingdom of purgatory. In all the planes of heaven, you can grow towards God. And as you grow closer to God, you can then begin to see more of heaven. Because as of now, you are closed off to the greater beauty of heaven, but you are still not being punished. And you're never really punished in heaven. But this is definitely not the nicest that heaven offers for some people who've made better choices in their life. And so Marley comes up, gives him a hug, and they walk off. And he says, you see this Brock? He's a person who's been cast out. He's not even aware of this realm. He's my son. He died before me, and I clean his rock every day. You want to help me clean his rock? We can give him service. And I pray for him. I know I didn't believe in God, but, well, God exists. After all, I'm in heaven. It's no longer a knowable essence. It's now a very knowable presence. And so they walk away cleaning rocks of other people who have died, but did not even progress to the level of purgatory. And so then the angel is left alone upon his rock, upon his mound. So suddenly another man appears upon this plain. He's dressed as a monk. And he goes up to the angel and asks, are you Saint Peter? That is one of the names that I am known by. So I know why I'm in heaven. I'm in heaven because I prayed every day. That helped, but that was not the greatest charitable act you did. I know then. I memorized the whole Bible, so I could recite every verse. Every time I would be in a meeting, I could just pull up the passages at will. It's like that helped. That definitely did help, but that was not the most charitable act you did in your lifetime. I said prayers every day. That helped. No. Well, then what was the most charitable thing I did? Do you remember when Father Bartholomew died about 5 years ago? What did you do when he died? I don't recall doing anything special. My beloved child. When he died, he'd been the one taking care of the garden. Without being asked, you took over that duty. And you started feeding the other monks. Without being asked, it was a true act with you didn't do it because you thought you would get reward or go to heaven. You did it purely just to be kind. It was the most charitable act. And suddenly behind the angel opens a the window into heaven. And suddenly there it is, Brother Bartholomew. So Luke goes up to him and says, Brother Bartholomew, Luke. They hug and walk off into the plain of heaven. And once more, the thing closes. And a new person appears upon the plain of purgatory. He says, Jill, I see that you have joined me on this plain. Are you one of my ancestors? Yes, that is one of the things I can be known by. She smiled at him and said, I always had such a close relationship with my family. I'm glad that I get to be with one of my ancestors. I'm from long before I'd been on this plane long before you were born. But you will only be in this plane for a short while, for you showed a great deal of patience in your life. One of the first times you did it was when you were a kid at a family reunion. What did you do on that day? I let everybody else eat before I was able to eat because you showed patience. You showed that other people could eat before you. It was an act of kindness and servitude you did to your fellow family members. And then, of course, you've done that in so many ways throughout the rest of your life. You've always been so patient with everyone you've ever dealt with, from your little cousins to even strangers on the street. You've showed them so much patience. And so again, the window to heaven opens up. And she sees her grandmother that she loved so much. She runs up to him and hugs him, and they go off together into the plain of heaven. So once more, he was all alone on that plain of purgatory. So now we come up to the story of diligence and servitude. This lady passed away after many years. She went up to the angel because she could see his glowing halo. Elsa, he said, it is good to see you. On into the pain, you'll soon be passing on into the plane of heaven. And so he said, do you know what you did to earn your plane of heaven? Well, I did many things. He said, yes, you did. You were a good person through all of your days. But you did one thing more than anything else. Do you remember when your neighbor was sick one day and it was a really windy day and there were just leaves and detritus all over his front of his place? You went out and swept out your own front of your shop as you did every day of work. You then swept out his because even though he wasn't going to be opening today because you had heard that he was doing poorly, you wanted his shop to still look nice. You just did, and then from that point forward, Every morning you'd get to work a little early, and you would sweep out all three of the shop stalls so everyone's place of business looked nice. And you did that service every day you worked. Even after you stopped working, you would still get up in the morning and go and sweep off those shops because it was just a task you just were so diligent at that you just kept doing it. You kept being of service in a way that you thought was very important to you to have a beautiful place of work. Even though you were no longer working, you still kept doing it for the rest of your life. And so then again, the plane of heaven opened up into a beautiful landscape. And Jill's grandmother said, "Welcome, my child. Come to me. I would love to hold you." And so Jill ran up and hugged him. And they went off into heaven. And again, St. Peter was waiting upon the plain of purgatory for more people to give guidance to. That's the end of this book that I wrote a couple of years ago. So I'm going to say a prayer, because one of the things that the Baha'i faith teaches is that we can say that we can do services. You can choose to devote a day of work or a day of charity to a person who's passed on, or one of the other things you can do for people who passed on is you can say a prayer for the departed. So I'm going to say a prayer for the departed now. O God, O my God, forgiver of sins, bestower of gifts, and dispeller of afflictions, verily I beseech thee to forgive the sins of such as have abandoned the physical garments, and have ascended to the spiritual world. O Lord, purify those that trespass, and dispel their sorrows. Change their darkness into light. Cause them to enter into the garden of happiness. Cleanse them with the most pure water, and grant them to behold the splendor on the loftiest mounts. Abdul Baha. Thank you for watching again to the end. I wish you the best.